Well, you got it, they want it, and now the government, this world over, are making damn sure they get it. But wait till you hear just how much they want of it. Welcome, everybody. I'm Neil Cavuto, and Fox on top of tax hikes that are way over the top. Try 50% right off the top. Britain slapping what it promises will be a one-time, one-year, 50% tax on bonuses of more than $40,000. Income that is already subjected to the country's top rate of roughly 40%, which means for at least 1 year. Are you sitting down? Well, very few watch me standing up. But anyway, a top rate of 90%. 90%. It is enough to make Nancy Pelosi's 5.8% health care surcharge tax on the rich look downright cheap. But count the guy many say could be a future British Prime Minister downright worried. And suddenly, Daniel Hannan's in-person, in-your-face, tongue-lashing back in March, remember that? To the present Prime Minister, Gordon Brown, well, that's looking downright prescient.
It's not that you're not apologising. Like everyone else, I've long accepted that you're pathologically incapable of accepting responsibility for these things. It's that you're carrying on, willfully worsening our situation, wantonly spending what little we have left.
Now, that video went viral. More than 2.5 million hits on YouTube alone. This new tax hike making Daniel Hannan even sicker. Dan, of course, a member of the EU Parliament. He joins me right now from Belgium. Daniel, good to have you back. Much of what you preached about then is coming to reality now. What do you make of this?
It's how socialist governments always end. They run out of money, they empty the treasury, they empty our credit, and then they start turning on people that they don't like. And I'm afraid this is really more about class war than about raising money. I mean, look, no one likes paying taxes. I don't like paying taxes. You don't like it. Nobody watching likes paying taxes. The only justification for tax is that it raises revenue to pay for schools and roads and hospitals and armies and navies, right? This isn't going to do that. This is an arbitrary tax aimed at some people that they don't like, and the effect of it, I'm afraid, is going to be to drive those people away so that not only do they not pay this new tax, but they'll stop paying the levies that they were previously paying, which I'm afraid is going to cost us money overall.
All right, and as a result, they're directly interfering with whatever technical ear devices we're giving you, which is, as you know, a plot. But let me ask you, in all seriousness, Daniel, whether you buy the fact that they say this is going to be a one-year event, a one-time event, and then the tax goes away. Well,
I mean, I suspect that will be the case because we're in the last year of a Labour government. I'd be astonished if these guys are re-elected on the basis of what they've done. I just think the whole thing is, you know, it's an arbitrary tax, Neil. That's the truth of it. Bankers are not popular. They are blamed for having got us into the mess we were in last year. And, you know, I understand that they're not popular. I was, as I suspect you and a lot of your viewers were, I was pretty annoyed about the bailouts and the nationalizations that we had in both our countries. It seemed to me very wrong to use taxpayers' money to support some very wealthy individuals from the consequences of their own mistakes, you know, to rescue them from their own failure. But two wrongs don't make a right. And what we're now doing is imposing arbitrary and punitive taxation, not just on the people in the banks that were taken over by the state, but also in the ones that didn't do anything wrong and have remained independent. Now, you guys rebelled against arbitrary taxes. It was one of the grievances you had against us. It's a terrible pity to see it happening again.
Now, if this tax goes through and hits beyond just these financial types, you're going to see their bonuses taxed at essentially 90%. The feeling here, Daniel, is that this is going to be a follow-up British invasion. We like the Beatles, but I don't know if we're going to flip over this. What do you see happening here?
The thing that is keeping the United Kingdom afloat in terms of international credit is the opinion polls. The investors can see that these guys are not going to be in power much longer to carry on smashing things up. But I mean, you know, if this were to carry on, I think the effects would be very serious because we're talking here about very mobile workers. This is a bit of the workforce that is global, and these guys can close their laptop and open them again in Singapore or Geneva or Shanghai, and that's what they will do, which will mean that there will be a net loss of revenue for us. I'm afraid this is about a government that is putting its narrow party interest beyond the national interest. It's trying to shore up its last few public sector supporters by playing on this politics of envy. rather than doing the right thing by the country and trying to restore order and sanity to our public finances.
But I wonder if it's just this government or just your country. I'm thinking of this column in the Wall Street Journal today, Nicolas Sarkozy, the leader of France, Gordon Brown, of course, of Great Britain, saying that they are open to essentially a global re-regulation, recognizing the fact, I'm paraphrasing here, that taxpayers get the bill as it should be. It isn't always fair, it isn't always right, but that's essentially what you're left with. What do you make of that these guys seem to be setting in stone, one a liberal, the other a fairly conservative guy, that this will be the direction, whether we like it or not?
They would love that to happen, wouldn't they? And that's why they are setting up these organizations that are more and more remote from the national electorates, whether it's the G20, whether it's the European Union, whether it's the Kyoto-Copenhagen process, because the further you get from the voters who are also the taxpayers, the easier it is to regulate and tax and have more and more legislation. The one thing that keeps taxes down is competition between states. A state in a competitive market can raise its taxes to a certain level, and then the money starts going abroad, and so it's constrained. It can give its employees generous rights on holiday entitlements and paternity leave up to a certain level. Then the jobs start going abroad, and the way of getting around
Daniel,
that, which is what Sarkozy and Brown are doing, is that.
But where abroad? I know. Let's say if France raises their rates brutally high, we've seen Ireland do it. We've seen Great Britain now do it. A host of other countries are following suit. You mentioned Singapore before. We know what's happening here in the United States. Rates are also going up, though not to the degree they are in Britain. But where will money go? Will money be attracted to Asia then, where the rules, where the rates are much lower, much less of a hassle?
Yes, I think you can see that is already happening. We haven't necessarily lost this battle. I mean, we are making a mistake in terms of the current direction of policy, but it is a reversible mistake. Let me put it like this. Imagine if your country were not a federation. Imagine if there were not states competing with each other in terms of tax jurisdictions. What would the tax rate be in California if it weren't next door to Nevada? That applies also massively among states at an international level. It applies between different countries. And that's why I'm so alarmed at this whole process of trying to create a global economic architecture. Because look, tax harmonization is never going to be downwards, right? The harmonization of social policy and employment law is never going to be in a free market direction. This is how governments hide from their electorates and cook up deals with each other in order to have more government and more tax.
So when I have you here, and someday you're a young guy now, but someday you do become prime minister, Sean Hannity here thinks that he gets the first U.S. interview with you. I told him, not so fast, Sparky. I do. Could you settle this once and for all? And don't tell me you're going to Barbara Walters. Don't tell me you're going to Barbara Walters. Go ahead.
No, I think Neil, you pipped him to it by about 5 minutes, but I'm afraid this is going to be a dwindling asset, because my guess is that 20 years from now I'm still going to be making the same arguments from a basically oppositional point of view, because that's the lot in life of some of us who are against big government.
Oh, I don't know. You're what, 29? I think you got a ways to go. All right, I'm exaggerating here, but Daniel, always good seeing you. Thank you very much. All right, so everyone knows on record I get the first interview when he's prime minister.